Aloha, today is January 19th, and this is the second Oahu Business Recovery Grant webinar that we're having, and we're so delighted to see everyone here joining us today. I'm Cynthia Yamasaki, and there's also Pascual Castaño. We're both from the Oahu Center of the Hawaii Small Business Development Centers, and we're very pleased to have with us the expert panelists of this program to be presenting information. We're going to start with Pono Chang, and he'll give an overview about the grant itself, followed by Brandon Asuncion from Accumulus, who will go through the application form, examples. We've been working with clients, so we know some of the frequently asked questions and reviewing that. He will also cover the worksheet, which is a very critical piece that we're finding that we encourage you to take a look at very closely to see if you qualify for the grant. And then we also have Jenny Lee on the line. She's has a lot of good questions. Stacy will be helping with the chat. And so we have a whole team of support here for you. Again, please mute your microphones. We'll be going through the presentation. We will have time for Q&A. As you listen to the presentation and you have a question, please use the chat function to type in your question. And then we'll make time to make sure that we can get to that. This is scheduled to end in 1 hour. If we can't get to all the Q&A, please know that on the Oahu Business Recovery Grant website, there is a page that has called Resources. It has the recording of last week's webinar. It'll have the recording of today's webinar, as well as the frequently asked questions, the questions and answers that occurred in both webinars, and as things are progressing with this grant and people looking at the application form. So that's a very important page along with everything else there. So please join me in welcoming first speaker, Mr. Pono Chang from Pono, Hawaii.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Pono Chang. I'm with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii Grant Management Project Team. And glad to see everyone here today to learn about the grant. I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint. This was created by the City and County of Honolulu, and just obviously I am not with the city, but they had asked us to use this as the standard grant presentation document. Okay. Okay, so about OER, I'll just speak about their agency. Their goal is to stabilize business and families from the lingering effects of the pandemic, and then trying to plant various seeds through projects in the post-COVID economy that is more diverse, equitable, and provides good jobs for the people of the City and County of Honolulu. So their good job strategy is to preserve good jobs, create good jobs, and then help people get a good job. So there are various programs towards those ends. Why we're all here today is to learn more about the Oahu Business Recovery Grant. It is a $10 million grant program for small businesses that have endured a 25% loss of income or more during the pandemic. And we'll get a little bit more into the details of that measurement. So on January 30th, we will begin accepting grant applications from up to 400 small businesses on Oahu. Here is the link for the grant site on the grant link to the grant site. So what you'll do is you go to the website and there'll be a link. It's going to take you to a platform that Brandon is going to show you a little bit later in the presentation. It is an online application on what we call the submittable platform. Grants will range from $15,000 to $50,000 depending on your size. No application is guaranteed funding. For those who need assistance in other languages, applications are available in these languages for people in addition to English on the website now. And the goal of all of this is posting the application as well as a checklist for all the documents so that companies can prep, get everything together, take a look at the application, see what they're going to need. There is, I think, one question that has a short narrative requirement that you can work on. So when the portal opens on the 30th, you can submit your application at that time. Again, it is on a first come, first served basis. So who's eligible? So organizations, small businesses, having no more than 500 employees. At least one of the owners must be a Hawaii resident, and the applicant's business must be operating in the city and county of Honolulu. The applicant, when they're submitted, the small business is registered and in good standing with the Hawaii Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, is current on all of their federal, state, and city taxes. And you'll see this in the application that for city taxes, the proof is going to be obviously in real property taxes, but it will only apply if the business entity owns real property. So if your business doesn't own real property, but let's say you own a house or an apartment, and for some reason you're not current on your taxes there, that will not be a requirement. It's only a requirement of the business. Only one application is allowed per small business. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. So getting ready to apply, start getting your forms together. So provide proof of doing business on Oahu. And the set of forms you're going to use that is through your GET filings, because Oahu does have a surcharge. And that's one of the ways we're going to prove that, or you're going to prove to the city that you do business on Oahu. You're going to have to document that your net income loss was at least 25% when compared between both of these bullet points, 2019 and 2020, and 2019 and 21. You have to meet both requirements. And just to clarify, net income, that you had to have a net income loss of 25% or more. It's a whole number, so 24.8 does not qualify. It has to be 25% or greater. And to further clarify, it doesn't mean you lost money. All it means is you had a reduction in net income of 25% or greater. So if you made money in all 3 years, that is fine. You're still eligible as long as you had a net income loss of 25% or more when comparing 2020 and 2021 back to 2019. Here are the size of the grants based on your gross revenue. So as you can see, it's a tiered format. We're going to use 2019 gross revenue as the determining factor of your eligibility on the grant size you will be able to receive. If you have, if when you're going through either the website, the application, or the net income calculation form, which Brandon is going to go over shortly, you can either call the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii has a call center, and it's staffed Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. except holidays. Or you can email the chamber through a WildBizGrant at cochawaii.org. There will be one more webinar on January 25th. This will be the third webinar before the application portal opens. Some key takeaways. Here's the website. Obviously, take time to gather all documents before applying. We can't stress that enough. The portal will only accept, we're going to limit it to the first 400 applications. Again, first come, first served basis. And again, there is no guarantee of funding for every application. So, please get it in as soon as you can. The portal opens January 30th at 8 a.m. And I'm going to stop here. We'll do Q&A after Brandon presents.
Thank you, Pono. That was very informative. And so, yes, I agree with you to check through, read all the documents as Pono is putting up his screen now. One thing that we have found, Pasquale and I, so the Hawaii Small Business Development Center is also available to help you. We'll let you know how you can reach us at the end of the webinar. But let me just say that the tax clearance certificate is very important to have a current one. And so if you don't have one, start now because it takes time to process. And we'll go over that a little later. And there's instructions on the website as well and in the form. So now that Pono has his screen up, I'll hand it over, excuse me, Pono, Brandon, hand it over to Brandon Asuncion. Thank you, Brandon.
Aloha, everybody. I'm Brandon Asuncion with Cumulus Advisors, also part of the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii's project management team here. So what I'm going to be going through today is the actual application that you guys are going to see come 8 a.m. on Monday, January 30th. Right now, it's not available, but a PDF is available through the website that we've shared with you through this deck. But I'll go through each question. There's basically 4 sections. So the first section is just talking about eligibility. Second section is about business and contact information, and then going through the financial and tax information, which also touches base on the eligibility, and then finally attestations and signing. So I'll go through each question just so everyone gets familiar with it. But again, a PDF of this is already on the website if you guys want to download it. And I would highly encourage getting all your documents together right now to get everything ready so you can go through the application once it does open up, as it is on a first come, first serve basis. So diving into the application. So the first section, going through eligibility. Does your business operate in the city and county of Honolulu? This is one of the requirements for the grant. Second question, please describe the principal business activity and how the business was negatively affected or impacted by the state or city's emergency orders. This is the narrative that Pono was talking about, where you would just document here how the business was impacted. And to justify that, the next question goes through actually the individual COVID-19 emergency orders. So you're going to have the mayor's proclamations, emergency orders. As long as you select one, you apply. And it's a long list. Don't get exhausted by seeing the long list, but on the bottom is a link that has more details into what each proclamation is about. So all you need to select is one. If all of them apply to you, which many might actually apply to your business, you can select all of the above on the top. And going into the next section, this is the actual business and contact information. So the business name registered with the DCCA, you would enter that here, upload the actual DCCA business registration when the business was organized originally. If you don't have that on file, there are links. Under each question, there's instructions, acceptable file formats, and then if needed, there's also links to point to where you can get the documents if you don't have it on file. And are you the business owner? Depending on your answers to each question, it'll pop up with different selections under there. So if you are the business owner, put in this information. If you're not, then just putting in what your title and position is, your first name, last name, contact information. And if you are not, we do want to know what the primary business owner's name is. We are highly recommending that the business owner, or at least a CPA, someone who's familiar with the financial information and general business information of the company, complete the application. That would probably be the most beneficial and probably streamline the process a lot more. Next question. Please upload a copy of the primary business owner's Hawaii driver's license or state ID. This is just ensuring that the primary business owner is actually physically in the state of Hawaii, which is one of the requirements of the grant. And then general contact information, phone number, email address, and your business physical address. Next section is diving into the financial or tax information. This, you're going to put in your federal tax ID or TIN number, your GET number, and the NAICS code, which is also listed on your tax returns. And if you are willing to accept your 1099 tax form, for the end of the year reporting, if you do get awarded the grant, you will be issued a 1099 miscellaneous form. So yes, put in your contact information, your email, if not, mailing address. Number of employees, so you need less than 500 to qualify for the program or for the grant. And to evidence that, number 16 is asking for 2019's form 941. And that would be the last quarter's 941 of the calendar year. Or what's also acceptable is if you do have a PEO or you use a PEO, an attestation from your PEO showing less than 500 employees is valid. And if you are a sole proprietor or you do not have any employees with your company, you can upload an attestation form saying you don't have any employees. And there's a link underneath this question that has the form. And you can re-upload it. Next question is asking for a current signed W-9. This is just about the structure of the company, a sign off of it to get your tax ID number. So we have that on file. As well as the DCCA certificate of good standing, it needs to be current. And also your federal and Hawaii tax clearances. So links are provided under these two questions. If you don't have them already, the links are here. You can navigate to those separate sections to get them. Does the business own real property in the city and county of Honolulu? Yes, that's one of the requirements. And then moving into your federal and state income tax returns for all 3 years. So 2019, 2020, and 2021. And this is where we'll be comparing the your net income loss or reduction of 25% between years. So what we're going to be using for the next question, the net income calculation form, is your federal tax form, not your state tax form, but we are requesting for both in number 21. Let me pull up the net income calculation form. Okay, so this is where you're going to actually see, and this is probably a good starting point too, is to see if you do qualify. This is probably one of the most stringent eligibility items for the grant. So I would start here before you start gathering all the other documentation in case you aren't eligible. So instructions are provided at the top. And I'll just go through each line item. Net income and loss per your respective federal tax form. So for calendar year companies, it's very black and white because 12/31 is going to be your fiscal year end. But for any other businesses that have a fiscal year end throughout the year, that's not a 12/31 or calendar basis. Let's say you're a 6/30 year end or you're a 3/31, then you would use the year end that has that year included. So if you're a 3/31/19 business, you would use 3/31/19s for 2019. And on the IRS form, it's labeled as 2018. So it can get kind of confusing, but as long as you remember that you're using the fiscal year end with this year, with this respective year in your year end, that's the important thing. So for an example, if you had $100,000 of net income in 2019, in 2020, let's say you had 75,000. 2021, you had 70,000. And as you go through here, these are items that we're going to adjust back into your net income to see if you're eligible. So the starting point is net income from your tax return, and there's any other federal, state, or city or local programs you have to add back. So if you had the PPP, you would add back the PPP, which would have been in 2020 or 2021. Let's say you received 5,000, just as an example. The calculation on the bottom is going to show whether or not it's 25% or more. So this already alone, you wouldn't be qualified because it needs to have a loss year over year of 25% or more. But let's say you're 70,000 and you receive 5,000 in PPP, you would qualify looking at 2019 to 2020, but you also have to have a 25% reduction from 19 to 21 as well. So these two figures right here are very important on looking at whether or not you qualify. So other programs or grants that have to be added back are the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. You would do the same thing within the respective year that you receive them. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund Grant, same thing. The idle loan forgiveness. And sorry, taking a step back, going back to the PPP loan. If you receive the PPP loan, but you don't get the loan forgiven, then you wouldn't add that in here because it's the amount that's forgiven that you would have to add back here. So same process with this forgivable advance for the idle loan. And for these other programs, so the City and County of Honolulu's Small Business Relief and Recovery Fund Grant, this is where it's important to get your CPA involved. If they're not, is to make sure that you're including all the right information from your federal tax forms, if they are taxable or not taxable. So getting your CPA involved right now is very important. And the Hawaii Business Pivot Grant, and also any other grants down here you would list that you received to adjust net income. So when you're looking at the comparisons to see if you're eligible, as long as between 2020 and 2019 is 25% or more, and the comparison from 2021 to 2019 is 25% or more, you qualify. And then you will go ahead, save this, and then re-upload it into the application here. There's the link to the net income calculation form on here. It's also on the website that's available now. And then instructions on how to calculate net income, depending on your entity type, where to look specific to your entity type. If you're a sole proprietor, if you're a S Corp, if you're a corporation, or a partnership. And then moving on to the next question, upload documentation on any previous or current federal aid received or to be received. So this includes the adjustments that were listed in the net income calculation form. So PPP, loan forgiveness, the SBRRF fund, shutter venue operations grant, and then the idle loan advance. The best documents to upload is the award document that you receive directly from the awarding agency. If you don't have that, bank statements, anything showing the actual funds received is valid. Also, if you have the amounts included on your tax forms, that can also support as documentation. And then to determine how much, if you are eligible, to determine how much grant you would be eligible for, you would put in your gross revenue here for 2019. And that's where your grant size will either be, if your revenue is between 75,000 and up to 5 million, that's how we would determine your grant size. And then we're also asking for a copy of your filed annual GET form, which is the form G49, and if applicable, the form G75 for all 3 years. So 2019, 2020, and 2021. And lastly, a copy of the signed form 4506T, which basically allows us to request a tax return transcript directly from the IRS. So a link can be found at the bottom with more instructions. And the last section is all the attestations, just going through the eligibility requirements again, making sure that you're checking off each of these. All of these do need to be checked off in order to qualify. So these are reiterating the questions above, just in a summary form. And lastly is the signature, the title and position of the person who is completing the application, and today's date. And then once that's completed, you would submit the form. You do have the ability to save your draft, because when you go into the portal, you're going to have to create an account. So if you have some of the information, you can start to work on it, save it, come back, upload more information, and then you would submit it. And if you have any questions for the website, here's a link direct for the support team. All right, I'll turn it over to the for any questions for Q&A now.
Before we do that, Hono wanted to share something from the portal. Hono, as we look through the Q&As, and anyone who joined us later on this call, please know that it is being recorded and a copy will be posted and available for you. Also, when we do Q&As, we ask that you type it into the chat room. So Pono, did you want to share
Yes,
something?
if I could.
Okay,
Brandon,
yes.
if you can stop sharing. Thanks.
Brandon, can you stop share, please? Thank you.
So I'm just going to share the website really quick, just in case none of you have been there. And then also there's a document checklist form, and you can kind of see some of the resources there. So this is the website, oahubizgrant.org. It has about the grant, similar what we talked about, basic information, then eligibility criteria. And again, as Brandon had mentioned, we would highly suggest you fill out the net income calculation form, especially if you've gotten grants, other grants, because it will help you figure out before you get everything else, spending time doing that first. And then for those who have difficulty with or English is not your first language, we do have the translation, Google Translation extensions at the top that you can download. The applications are all listed here, the PDF formats of the application, and then the net income calculation form is here, and you can download it. Here again is the eligibility criteria, and we also did list some examples just for you to get an idea of what is eligible and what isn't, and each example kind of gives you an idea. We wanted to show different scenarios. And then here is we did put a document checklist of everything that you would need to upload. You do have to submit, or excuse me, fill out the application online on the submittable platform. It's a very easy to use platform. As you could see, it will also, that's how the reviewer is going to review it. And that's how your reviewer, if they have follow-up questions with you, will communicate with you. So it's not through the PDF. We just provided the PDF so you could see what the requirements are before we turned on the portal, versus not letting you know what's required and then just turning it on, and it allows preparation. So here's the checklist. And then we also have FAQ resources, again, the webinars, and then FAQs up here based on some questions. We think people may have questions from past webinars as well as from the call center. And then with that, I'll turn it back to Cynthia for the Q&A.
Thank you. So everyone, we are looking through your Q&As or your questions, and the answers will be provided. So one was already answered in that there was a question if they can fill out the application PDF and upload it. And as you heard Pono say, no, you have to go online on January 30th. The portal opens at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you will have to complete your application online. All those red asterisks are required fields to fill out, and where the documents that need to support that particular box on the application form has to be uploaded in that area. So that's one question. Stacy, do you see any other questions that we should answer?
Sure. There's a bunch of questions, but does the tax clearance include the GET reconciliation, which is due on April 20th? So we just asked that the tax clearance be current, and that just would mean you filed all of your taxes currently through the date that you pulled the clearance application. And sorry, go back. We want it to be current, no more than 60 days old. So there was another question. Will we have to plan to pay taxes on the grant? And the answer to that is yes. That's why we are collecting your W-9s, because you will receive a 1099 at the end of the year too. It is going to be taxable. Will this video recording be available to rewatch? It's going to be posted on our website that I've included a link to, as well as I think the city's website, which I think Constancio, I saw him put a link in the chat. Can the person filling out the form be a CPA or outside consultant? I'm going to just start to ask questions to maybe Brandon or Pono, so I'm not answering the questions. So Brandon, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so it can be either. We're just recommending that it's someone who one is privy to the information, but also is familiar with it to make sure that the right information is provided. The owner does need to do the final attestations though, so we are asking for that at the end of the application.
Next question is, can the tax returns have the social security number truncated or need to be fully visible? And is the upload site and where the tax info stored secure?
I'll take the second question first. It is secure. So the submittable website has its own security. It is a secure portal, so all the documents that are being uploaded there are safe and secure. We are asking for the full social security number or tax ID number, just so we're able to verify that that is what's matching the other business registration documents. But from a security standpoint, everything is secure.
And next question, the PPP only applies in the year it was forgiven and not the year that it was received, correct? So, yeah.
Correct.
Let me see. That was the same as the next question. Can you, Brandon, can you explain the fiscal year ending one more time? So if you have a fiscal year ending 6/30/19, what you are going to be filing?
Yeah, so if your fiscal year end is 6/30/19 or any fiscal year end that's not 12/31, you will be using 2018's tax form for the IRS because a 2019 form isn't available, right? So at the time that you're doing it, you're really using 2018's form. But it is for the actual fiscal year end 3/31 or 6/30/19 or whatever the fiscal year end during that year is.
And maybe Pono, you want to take this, or Constancio if he wants to come up. But is there a list of all the mayor's orders we can access for early verification, or a copy of the application that we can pull up with the questions that to be sure we have everything required?
So there is a copy of the application on the website, and I believe, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's also on the website, the list of the link to all the proclamations.
Yes, it should also be located in the PDF application as a note.
Okay, so I'm not sure what question number 23, it says it has a required asterisk, what our business received, none of those, but will we upload? And I think number 23 is the question about documentation for all the aid that was received. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if your business didn't receive any documentation, I think I would just recommend that maybe you upload a attestation that you didn't receive any of them, and should be able to be proven by the tax returns that you've also provided copies of. This one seems to me that you're attempting to exclude people who received non-taxable grants in previous years, particularly when you request that non-taxable income is added back in the year forgiven, not in the year of actual economic effect. Why is this formula? I'm not sure. We can actually answer that question. That was just the way that I think that the tax law worked, and the city had decided to design the program. Next question, are we using federal net income or Hawaii net income? The PPP loan forgiven is not taxable for the federal, but taxable for Hawaii.
Correct. So you're using federal net income, and that's why we're asking to list it as an adjustment, because it should be added back as an adjustment to qualify for the program or for the grant.
Next question, can the CPA sign for the business owner if granted permission to do so?
I think we'll have to check with the city on that one to clarify, but we can get back to you after.
There are, just so you know, there are attestations specifically to regarding the business that I think we prefer the business owner to be able to attest to. And that part would require I think the business owner to be able to answer. Next question is, does the business need to own property in Honolulu, or is rental still eligible?
You don't
Which
have
is-
to
yeah.
own any property in Honolulu. It's just the requirement is that that the business operates in the city and county of Honolulu. And it doesn't have to be restricted to just this city and county. It can be operating within the state, but partial or at least part of the business operations needs to occur in this county, this city and county.
Yeah, and to follow up to that, I think there's another question that we ask, whether or not you own real property, and that's just to confirm that you're current on paying your property taxes. The part of the requirements is that you are able to get tax clearances, which only really applies to this federal and state, but it doesn't, the tax clearance doesn't also apply to the county. So the county would like to make sure that everyone is current in paying their taxes. So if you do own real property, if your business owns real property, then we're asking for documentation, which is available on the city's website, that the taxes are current. Next question, is the Form 4506T is e-signature okay? And I would say the e-signature should match the person, the business owner, the business owner's signature. Everything is going to be uploaded electronically, so a PDF version definitely is fine. But the 4506T should be signed by the business owner or the CPA who prepared the tax return. The document checklist asks for documents for any aid received. What specific emails or letters, because there are many emails for my business. I just want to know what you're looking for.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, if you received a PPP loan, usually you get it through the bank, and the forgiveness is also applied through the bank. So the banks have issued, when you get the forgiveness, a statement that tells you that they approved it and the SBA approved it, and it's dated and it has the amount that was forgiven. That's one example for the PPP. Brandon, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the probably the easiest one is to go through the bank, especially for the PPP. But for other grants that maybe you don't have all the information for, we're asking what's the most accurate that shows, one, the amount, to the period that it covers. So the awarding document would be the best. If it's not the awarding document, the funding of it, so bank statements that show evidence of that would be ideal. Check copies if it applies. But if it was awarded through an email, that's fine too.
We also can accept a copy of a 1099 for the grants that were taxable. Those, you should have received a 1099 for those. That's acceptable. And for those grants were also reportable on your tax return. So if you can point us to where in the tax return it was reported, that's also fine. Can the net income calculation form be uploaded in Excel or PDF?
Excel.
So it looks like we're filing simultaneously for 20 and 21. If we meet the requirements for 2020, but not for 2021, can we still obtain the benefits from this program just for 2010, 20?
No, one of the requirements for eligibility is you must have a reduction in net income for both years. So it has to be 2020 compared to 19 and then 2021 for 19.
If the portal opens at 8 a.m. on January 30th, at what point does the 400 app limit kick in? When you log in or when you upload to submit?
It should be based
I
on
believe they'll be
submissions.
submitted.
Yeah, when it's
Yeah.
completed, when it's submitted.
Yes.
Is there any requirements? How many years in the business? Does the owner have to be a U.S. citizen, etc.? So
Oh, go
Hmm.
ahead, see if you want.
I can answer the question about the business just would have to have been in existence in 2019 at the latest. So your registration, DCC registration should show that it was formed in or before 2019. And the US citizen, I don't believe that's a requirement, but you do need to be a resident. One of the business owners needs to be a resident of Hawaii.
And then just to take a step back to the answer for that first question. So that business has to be in existence in 2019, but also needs to still currently exist as well by the time of submitting the application.
So there's a question that came to me directly, and I just want to state this again, because I see a lot of questions about the real property. You do not have to have real property in Honolulu to apply. Your business has to be doing business in Honolulu to apply. You might be renting, you might just be doing a swap meet or something, but you do have to be generating income in the county of Honolulu. You do not have to own real property. If you do own real property, you just have to be demonstrate that you're currently paying your taxes, your property taxes. Next question, are agro businesses eligible to apply?
As long as these businesses it's open to any business except for nonprofits. So as long as you're able to meet the qualifications of eligibility, then you would be eligible to apply.
Okay, this is a good one. Are home-based businesses eligible for the grant? We own the land but don't have a storefront. Also, how does the sole proprietorship company get a certificate of good standing? I tried looking online but couldn't find it.
So, yes, you can be a home-based business. You don't even need to own the home you're in. It does not have a storefront or commercial address requirement like prior grants. And that was one of the purposes that the city was trying to help, is those who didn't qualify for PPP or others where you had to have a commercial address. So yes, absolutely, home-based businesses are eligible. Sorry, what was the second part?
How does a sole proprietorship get a certificate of good standing?
So we're in the process of trying to come to a final answer, because that question has been asked from both the state and the city, the state who issues the actual form, and then the city who has to agree that it's acceptable. It might be some sort of attestation or something along those lines. But if you can check back on the website, probably maybe mid next week, we should have an answer to that.
Thank you. And so next question is, if in 2019 gross revenue is more than $5 million, are you not eligible?
Yes, you would not be eligible. The max is 5 million for the grant.
And the next question is kind of similar. Are there any annual revenue requirements for applying? So it starts at 75,000 and the max is 5 million.
Based on 2019 revenue.
You posted a link to the sample application form with the questions that were shown. So the website, the application form is on the website. I think Pono went over. We've dropped a couple of links to the website in the chat already, and the application form is there. Being a Hawaii resident is one of the eligibility requirements, but what if the owner commutes back and forth internationally? Are we still eligible to apply?
As long as you're considered a Hawaii resident, the primary business owner, then you would be eligible.
So next question, the other funds we received are already included in the net income of Schedule C. Do we still have to report it again on the calculation form?
I'm not sure what you mean by other funds, if that's.
So I can answer that. So I think she's saying that the other, income like the SBRRF or the pivot grants, if those funds actually were taxable and should have been included in your net income or your Schedule C. So we do say on the net income calculator, you would only report those funds if for whatever reason you didn't report it on your tax return, but they are taxable and should have been included in your net income. So, this is a long question. If the applicant had both the first and subsequent PPP loans forgiven in the same year in 2021, which lowers their loss for 2021 year just under the applicable loss, but the business would qualify if the PPP loans were included in the year of the award. IRS allows different periods for PPP election of forgiveness. Some may not have applied in 2020 or 21, but they are eligible and do not have to include the PPP income in the calculation.
I'm not sure I understand that question, but if it was, as long as if you're receiving the loan forgiveness for the PPP for 2020 and 2021 in 2021, then it should be included as an adjustment in 2021 when in the year it's forgiven. So it would be an adjustment in 2021 for both.
Yes, that's correct. Next question. So we don't have to show documentation of the city and county grants, just list them on the calculation form and just the federal documents.
For all grants, we're asking for federal, state, and local, which is the city and county grants.
And that's what I had mentioned, the documentation can include anything in terms of, how you reported on your tax return, the 1099 that you received from the city and county. If you don't have those, the bank statement showing the funding.
So maybe to clarify, you have to provide those grants that were considered as taxable in terms of the proof of documentation, but it doesn't necessarily go on the net income calculation worksheet. Yeah, because it was already net income. Yeah.
Is a forgiveness approval letter acceptable documentation?
Yep, that's perfect. That's perfect documentation.
If my friends or family invest money in my business, does that count as income?
Generally not. I mean, that's typically equity. But depending how it's classified on your net income for the respective tax years, depending what they're for, then it could be. But in general, it's not, and it's considered equity, so it wouldn't affect it.
For a corporation, can any executive officer be the primary owner? And I believe there's actually a requirement that I don't remember the number offhand, but there's a requirement that it be an owner of at least a certain percentage. Do either of you, Brandon, or want to remember what that percentage is? I think it was a shareholder owning more than 20% of the business. So as long as the executive,
We'll go back
you can
and check and then post the answer on the FAQ.
Okay.
Yes. And there's, several more questions and we have about 10 minutes left. So if we don't get to all the questions, please know that on the website under resources, there will be the video of today's call as well as last week and the FAQs. So if we don't get to answer them during the webinar time, they will be posted on the website. Thank you, Stacy. You're doing a great job.
Sure. Is there a link for the attestation form?
Yes, there's a link. I believe it's on the website already, but it's also under each question on the application.
So the DCCA does not register all types of businesses such as attorneys. Can a sole proprietor attorney substitute a Hawaii Bar Association registration membership document as part of doing business in Hawaii. I think we would have to go back to the city on that one. I wasn't aware that there were businesses that DCCA doesn't register. Next question was directly to me, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you required to purchase the certificate of good standing from the HCE, or is a certificate of compliance allowed? So I'll take a stab at answering that. I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but you are able to get a certificate of good standing directly from the DCCA, and that's acceptable. You're also able to get the certificate of vendor compliance from the Hawaii Compliance Express, which shows which is a combined document that shows the compliance for the certificate of good standing, as well as IRS and federal IRS and state tax clearance. And so that's also the HCE certificate of vendor compliance is also acceptable.
Yes, can I add to that answer too, Stacy? So what we
Sure.
found is that people can get it. You can go down to the office or you can do it in a paper form. But because of the time frame, we're suggesting that you consider going ahead and pay the fee to get an account on HCE. You will then apply online, pay online, and it might be processed faster than mailing it. On their website, when you read through it, it says that if you were to mail it in, it could take 12 to 14 days to process. So if that's the case, you may not receive it in time to upload it with your application form. So it's a $12 investment, but it makes it easier to apply. And like Stacy said, it'll give you the clearance from federal and state taxes and the certificate of good standing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia. So that's if you were in business but not registered with the DCCA until 2021, are you disqualified?
So I guess maybe it depends on how you were formed, because if prior to filing your business, registering it, you were a sole proprietor, you may not have registered your business, right? You operate in it and then you convert, and then you do an LLC, but still, I think like you are answering or going back to the city and county because this is their requirements. We might have to be clarified. Yeah. So always those kind of answers as depends on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of goes in hand with how does a sole proprietor get a registration form? So we'll post an answer to that next week.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at my 2019 1120, I am comparing line 28 taxable income before net operating loss deduction with my 2020 and 2021 line 28. Is this correct?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. So it should be the taxable income before you're taking the net operating loss deductions. And again, the instructions are on the application itself. So it points you to exactly what line number you should be looking at and which one you should be including.
So the next question, I'm not familiar with the Hawaii Pivot Grant, but we did receive a grant from HTDC for manufacturing. Do you know, Cynthia, offhand, that was a CARES Act funded?
I think it
Grant,
is.
right?
No.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's the MAP grant, that is not. That is a state funded aside from the pandemic relief. That is a normal. If you received the grants for manufacturing facilities that was COVID related, especially when they were looking for people to build masks or create hand sanitizer, then that would qualify because that was CARES funded.
Yeah, so she clarified it was the CARES Act funded manufacturing grant. So that would be, they were looking for any of the federally funded grants from the CARES Act or AR, the ARPA funds. Duplicate question. will the DCCA network be able to handle the thousands of applicants applying for this grant at the same time? I'm not sure about that.
Can't answer for the DCCA. I
Yeah.
mean, some businesses already have it already, right? So they might not be logging on and requesting the downloads of it. So, but that, I'd hope so.
So I think this looks like our last question. I requested my tax clearance on Hawaii Tax Online on January 14th and received it online to print with a letter from the tax office. Is that sufficient?
Yes.
But that is just for the state tax, right? It doesn't include federal, or does it?
So if you
Yeah.
go to the Compliance Express, the form will have each of the line items of where you would be, whether or not you're compliant or not. It has state, federal, DLIR for unemployment insurance tax, and then it will have your certificate of good standing for DCCA.
Thank you.
All right, and then one more question came through. Are you able to submit the application if any of the requirements are missing?
No, you need to, all the requirements must be completed in order to submit it. And I think that's a control within the application. You won't be able to submit, but you can submit.
Great. Well, I think we covered all the questions. Stacy did an excellent job along with Hono and Brandon. We really appreciate your expertise and your dedication to our business community. This has been a real pleasure to work with all of you, and for everyone who joining on the call to gather all the information, to be aware of it. Again, just to repeat the key things about this, the key points is to go online, read through other requirements, do the calculation worksheet, and then if the calculation passes, then you can go and work on all the documentation that is required. And if you have any questions, the website has the information, a phone number that you can call to answer questions, as well as you can also schedule an appointment with one of our senior business advisors to help answer your questions or guide you. We will not complete it for you, but we just together collectively want to provide as much support so you are ready before January 30th when the portal opens to apply if you are eligible. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording, and I appreciate all of you. Breathe, take care, and good luck. And oh yes, and the reminder too, check back to the website on the FAQs, because as you heard today, there were questions that need to go back to the city and county to get clarification on their requirements, and the answers will be posted there. And I believe there's one more webinar next week. Is that right, Pono? Or Jenny? You think
Yes,
there's one more?
it will be on Wednesday, January 25th. And we're holding it at 7 o'clock at night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the reason why is we're trying to find different times because not every small business runs on an 8 to 5 schedule or is available. So we are having it's going to be a nighttime 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And that will also be recorded and posted on the website.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will have the same format and same information. It's just, again, another opportunity for people who couldn't make the first two.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Aloha. Take care. Be healthy. Be safe. And hang in there. Be resilient. We'll get through this together. Aloha.